Insomnia.
Insomnia. Have you ever had insomnia?
All the time.
Like why? And when?
Well, okay, so it's evolved for me. When I was younger, I'd get it all the time. And I think it was just can't stop the brain, racing thoughts, not feeling tired, but then also feeling tired, and different types of insomnia, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to go back to bed, waking up early, not being able to initiate sleep. I've had them all.
All the kinds.
All the kinds. Right now, my predominant type of insomnia, when I get it, it's more rare, is early awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's common as you get older, is what I hear.
See, I have no firsthand experience with getting older because I'm timeless. I'm the eternal now.
Yeah. Right. And the question really was, how do you treat insomnia? That was our friend Stephanie from Twitter.
Stephanie O from Twitter, yes.
Yeah, I also...
Benzos, right?
I have, oh, God. Those are prescribed for insomnia.
So insomnia.
Benzos are prescribed for insomnia.
Yes,
and as soon as you go off them, your insomnia rebounds. And gets significantly worse. Mm-hmm. It is just a fun
It's like drinking
party
yourself
out there.
to sleep. Similar GABAergic mechanisms of alcohol and benzos to some degree.
So you're saying alcohol does not work for sleep?
No, it does not. It will maybe knock you out, but your sleep cycle is disrupted. Your REM sleep is disturbed. Your restorative sleep is damaged.
Correct.
It's not a way to be.
Right. It's a way to knock yourself out, but not to get good sleep.
That's right. And benzos
also,
are the same way. Yeah.
And also, I think with alcohol, there's like a lot of awakenings, right? Like it's not like a restful full night, like you sleep.
Correct.
Unless you're like hammered.
No, that's right. That's right. And the same with actually THC.
Oh.
So some people say, well, hey, I swear it helps me sleep. But if you actually look at the sleep patterns, they're not great.
That is so good to know. I did not know that.
It is interesting. One other thing I want to say that actually relates insomnia and the benzo issue. I want to make sure people know the suffering that underlies the need for benzos. The panic, the anxiety, the insomnia, the fear, the whatever it is we shouldn't diminish that by saying we hate benzos. We should say, we should be very clear. There's a reason these drugs are so popular, that we're suffering. People are suffering. So let's address the suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's a really important point.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to insomnia.
Insomnia.
This is a kind of suffering too.
Yeah. So what am I allowed to ask when you have insomnia? What do you do?
Well, so what I do is, first of all, I'll realize sometimes, I did something wrong during the day. Like I drank coffee afternoon or something. So I look at my caffeine intake.
You're like, shoot, stimulants.
Yeah, stimulants. Dark chocolate is a problem, because it has caffeine. People don't realize the things that have caffeine, certain teas and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be like, God, why? And then I'll be like, oh, God damn it. I went to a Chinese restaurant. I had a pot of oolong tea, not knowing, because it's what they gave me to drink.
Right.
And now I can't sleep. Well, duh. And I can feel it in the heart rate.
And here's the bio components of insomnia, by the way.
There you go.
So caffeine,
stimulants, late exercise or stimulation before
exercise,
bed.
Absolutely, will stimulate your body.
Screens in late before going to bed. This blue light that's stimulating us.
You got it. It changes the sleep chemicals and your circadian rhythms.
Nice.
Also the bio.
So I'll go through that little differential diagnosis, and that'll keep me more awake because now I'm thinking.
Shit.
And then it becomes a pattern of, I just remembered something I should have done or shouldn't have done, or I said in a show that I shouldn't have said, or this person that attacked me on Twitter. And now it's cognitive. So now I'm anxious. So I'm feeling the anxiety physically. I'm feeling it in the chest.
This is our psych bubble.
Yes.
Of insomnia.
Yep.
I'm thinking these thoughts that I'm ruminating. I love the word ruminating.
That's
ruminating
a great word.
is like
so accurate.
Yeah, ruminating is when you think a thought over and over, and it's like, if you've ever watched a dryer and it's just like it's drying your clothes, it's just going around in a circle over and over, and the same piece of clothes, like the same yellow shirt, you just keep seeing it over and over again. That's ruminating.
Yeah.
So when you're lying in bed and you have the same thought over and over and over and over again, it's not helping you. You're not solving anything.
No.
Your brain is just chewing on it.
It's chewing on it. And the brain, again, let's forgive our minds. Sometimes they have these little children components that are like, if I just keep at this, I'll crack this. The feelings that actually are associated with, like this anxious feeling in the chest, maybe the only way to deal with this is by thinking about it constantly, thinking about what's triggering it. And the truth is, it may be that just relaxing that and feeling the sensation because it wants to be felt might be better. But again, so the rumination, very, very common with me in particular, because I'll ruminate about it. Now I'm much better because I'll recognize these patterns. So all the introspection and the work that I do on myself at least has that benefit where I'm like, oh, this is what's happening. Okay. So at that point, what I do is sometimes I'll say, okay, I'm not sleeping. So now I'm in bed and I'm conditioning myself to not sleep in bed.
You know all the things.
So, and then this is from personal suffering. So it's like, okay, I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to go sit somewhere quietly. Maybe I'll meditate. Maybe I'll read something until I feel like the body says it's time to go back to sleep. And so that's sometimes what I'll do with anxiety. When that happens, I'll meditate on the feeling of anxiety, and that transmutes it. It's crazy. It's now works almost every time. Sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes you just can't. And you're just like, no, this is just going to be this way tonight.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So emotions sometimes are part of an insomnia recipe, and that's in our psych bubble too. So emotions like stress and anxiety, when there's stuff going on in your life, of course there is, or you're feeling really sad, that can keep you up or wake you up also, or you're feeling really angry and frustrated, that can wake you up or keep you up also. So there's this cognitive component, there are the emotions of it. So biopsychosocial, always all the things, insomnia too. So agree 100%. Really appreciate your example. And I want to give like a quick hack for what to do for insomnia, because that's Stephanie's question.
Yes. What
to do for insomnia. Now, there are people who will tell you, you know where I'm going with this, that you should just
do one thing, take a pill.
Take a pill for your insomnia. But what research shows is that actually the medications will disrupt your natural sleep-wake chemicals in your brain, and actually over time will make your sleep worse and not better. So benzodiazepines are not good for sleep.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on things like NyQuil and Benadryl, and what are the casual over-the-counter like Ambien? And
very similar to benzos.
What's the research on that?
In the sense, I don't know the research, but I'll say this. Sometimes they can help you get to bed. That's true.
Yeah. Yes.
Used very intermittently, maybe a good tool, especially if you're, you really need to sleep for the next day or whatever. But they have probably the same components, especially, Benadryl can have a very dysphoric kind of hallucinatory component. And Ambien, again, these are dependency forming medications.
Yes, they are.
And sometimes they really don't help the early awakening issues.
No, that's right.
They help you get to bed, but they don't help the underlying thing. It's the underlying turmoil.
Yeah, that's right.
That we're not, and that's why I think, again, you can really feel into people who are suffering, and you're telling them, oh, well, now there isn't a magic pill. It's actually complicated, and you can just feel the suffering.
Everyone's like, oh, don't tell me that. Just give me knock me over the head with a hammer.
Exactly.
Oh, I've had that feeling. Will someone just please hit me over the head?
Me too.
Yeah, totally.
Like why? And then there's also the why. Why is this happening?
Well, and you and I have just said the why. Like there's some stuff going on. There's stuff going on in your life. There's like emotional turmoil, there's cognitive turmoil, and there's environmental. Like there's stuff, like there's
physical stuff,
and there's physical stuff. And we are living through a pandemic.
Right.
We are living through one of the most stressful experiences that humans can live through. Like no one will deny that all the things going on right now have been very stressful and dysregulating.
Yeah.
For everyone, it's triggered a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of issues for everyone. So a lot of compassion
Division,
there.
Yeah.
So I want to give some solutions.
Please.
You've named some already. One is reducing stimulants. That's right. You want to, if you're someone who's dealing with insomnia, no more coffee. Just don't if you're someone who drinks coffee regularly,
wean it off.
Dial back. Wean off gradually, slowly.
I have to do that.
Off the stimulants, because they're surely not helping your sleep cycle. That's thing one. Thing two, the first thing that you do in the morning is you get some sunlight in your pupils. And by the way, I don't mean stare at the sun. We don't want to burn out your retina. But getting sunlight in your eyes stimulates all sorts of sleep-wake chemicals. So it breaks down the sleep chemicals and it stimulates the wake chemicals. And to be even more nerdy, bear with me here. There's a part of your brain that I happen to love called the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Oh.
It makes me think of...
my boy SCN.
Yeah. It makes me think of, God, what was that song from Mary Poppins? Like
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
You and I are that word. Every time I read it, I think of supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Every time.
It's the same thing. Chiasmatic nucleus.
Suprachiasmatic nucleus. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus is this part of your brain that lives at the top of your optic nerves. And it's programmed by sunlight, because human beings are diurnal, which means we are awake during the day, function and activities during the day, and we are asleep at night. And this little part of your brain is programmed by sunlight. And you may have noticed that if you set your alarm every single day for 7 a.m., what happens over time, and you get up and you get sunlight every day, what happens over time is you don't need the alarm anymore. Your brain will wake you up at 7 a.m. if you do it long enough. And that's because your SCN has gotten programmed by sunlight. You have an internal alarm clock. It's called your SCN. It's very cool. So if you are dealing with insomnia, you want to go out, you want to set your alarm at some time, and you want to go outside and get some sunlight in your pupils, because your pupils are your eyes, which are connected to your brain, technically part of your brain, your optic nerves, and they program your suprachiasmatic expialidocious part of your brain, Mary Poppins. That's thing 2. Thing 3, try and set a sleep time and a wake time. A sleep time. And by the way, the reason I know all this stuff is because I treat pain, and sleep and pain have an intimate relationship. And so I always want to hack sleep because it's part of pain, it's part of anxiety, it's part of depression. So sleep time and a wake time. So it's very helpful to have a sleep time and a wake time, again, because that part of your brain loves to be programmed. And the human body is always striving for homeostasis, which is a fancy word for balance. And the human brain really likes regularity and balance. And when you have a sleep time and a wake time, it is really helpful for all the things: anxiety, depression, pain, everything, and sleep. So sleep time, wake time, your body knows when it's getting up and it knows when it's crashing and going to bed. So like 7 a.m. wake time, 11 p.m. sleep time. And we just aim for that. Doesn't mean you have to be rigid about it. We just aim for it. The next thing is the thing that you said that you do, which is so brilliant. And I want to say the science of why. When you've been laying in bed, the rule of thumb for me is like 20 minutes or more. And I don't want you looking at your clock. Right. You're going to turn your clocks around. I don't want anyone looking at their clocks, because as soon as you look at your clock and you're like, it's 2 a.m. and I'm not asleep. What happens to stress and anxiety?
Panic.
It goes up. And as stress and anxiety go up, likelihood of sleep goes down. So no looking at clocks, turn your phone over, turn your clocks around, put tape over the oven, stove, light, whatever. Don't look at any clocks. I don't want you knowing that it's 4 a.m. It will only stress you out. But when you've been laying in bed for something that feels like 20 minutes or so, get out of bed. Get out of bed. Because here's what happens. You said this. You're laying in bed. You're like, I'm not sleeping. Why aren't I sleeping? When am I going to fall asleep? I need to function tomorrow. I have the show to do. I have papers to write. I have to work. My kids need me. I have to show up. I have a million responsibilities. I'm going to get fired. All the thoughts that come into your head when you're not sleeping. I'm going to be dysfunctional. The longer you lay in bed, the more of those thoughts you have, the higher the stress and anxiety goes, the lower the likelihood of sleeping becomes. That's part of it. Part 2 is, you mentioned Pavlov. Do you want to tell everyone who Pavlov is?
So my boy Pavlov was an operant conditioning guy, I think, where he basically, classic conditioning, where he had these dogs, and he would notice that if he fed them when he rang a bell, they would become conditioned to know that what the bell meant feeding. So then he could just ring the bell and they would just start to salivate.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Sorry for putting you on the spot. I'm so sorry.
No. It just took me back to the old school.
I know. It's like you learn it so early in training that it's like you have to go back 20 years of like, it's true. That's right. And dust it off. And right. So Pavlov was this wonderful scientist guy, and he wondered if things that were not actually naturally related could become related. So we know that when we give dogs meat, they salivate because meat is delicious, unless you're a vegetarian and then you don't want to eat it, which is totally fine. So
in which case legumes are delicious. In
which case tofu and legumes and what is the fake meat called? The
chilled monkey brains.
Okay.
Impossible stuff.
Right. Impossible. Yeah. So he would feed the dogs meat and they would salivate, feed them meat, salivate. And eventually he was like, gosh, I wonder if I can make these dogs salivate to something not delicious, something that has nothing to do with meat. So he decided to use a bell. And we can all agree that dogs do not eat bells. Bells are not delicious to dogs. So he would ring a bell, give dogs meat. Ring bell, give meat. Ring bell, give meat. Ring bell, over and over and over again. And over time, as you astutely mentioned, what would happen is he would ring the bell and the dog's brains had paired these two unrelated things, meat with bell. In real life, those things are not related, but learning occurred. Brain changes occurred over time. And so when he would ring the bell, the dogs would salivate. Guess what happens when you lay in bed, not sleeping and feeling anxious? Your brain pairs bed with stress and anxiety. The longer you lay in bed feeling stressed and anxious about not sleeping, the more your brain will pair bed with not sleeping, which is the opposite of what you want when you get in bed. What you want your brain to pair your bed with is drooling unconsciousness.
Yes.
So Yeah,
it's like a Bluetooth connection.
Right.
Like you don't want a Bluetooth to pain and bed and unhappiness.
Right, exactly.
Yes. You want a Bluetooth to blissful unconsciousness.
Exactly.
Right.
So you want to get into bed only when you're sleepy, not when you're tired. And there is a difference. I'm tired now. Tired and sleepy are not the same. Sleepy is I feel like I'm about to fall asleep.
Right.
Tired is like maybe you throughout your day.
Right.
Sleepy is so you only get into bed when sleepy. And if you're not asleep within 20 minutes and you feel yourself getting stressed out, you want to break that cycle. You don't want to pair your bed with being stressed. You get out of your bed and you have some things in your living room or whatever that you're ready to do. It can be a coloring book. I like adult coloring books. You can make fun of me if you want to. I don't care.
Did you say adult coloring books?
Oh God, that sounded so bad.
Because I'm all in.
Oh my God, that sounded so bad.
Is that a thing?
Coloring books that are not for children.
Oh.
There's like it's like Zentangles.
they're very,
and, oh my
very
God, I did not mean anything rated R. Oh God.
What part of the human anatomy needs color? I mean,
oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Right. It's not pornographic coloring books.
I just gotta say, I gotta make
one.
I don't know. I can't tell because.
Oh my God, because the lights are so bright.
I'm red agnostic.
Wow.
Not quite colorblind, but I'll say this. Why is it that you and I always end up in these weird situations?
I'm so embarrassed.
Because I've had a few messages from people like, you're such a sexist. You always make these dirty jokes with Rachel, but you don't do it with Marty McCary. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know why that is. You should talk to
him about adult coloring books next time you see him. Just bring one in.
He'll probably do an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about it then.
By the way, I brought you a rated R coloring book. No, there's like Zentangles. It's like there are coloring books that are not like comic book characters, is what I'm trying to say.
Got it.
But there's a million.
Zentangle sounds like a problem with manscaping or womanscaping. Yeah.
But there's a million things that one can do when one is tired that is not going to stimulate you.
Oh, sorry. That last part.
What did I do?
I was going to say, I know some things you can do in the bed that aren't, but no. See, this is what happens.
This is your problem.
It is my problem. It is. It's the unconscious 10-year-old in me that's like,
So you want to get out of bed.
Okay.
And do calming things.
Got it.
That will soothe your system. So you can listen to calming music. You can read a dumb magazine.
All right.
You can have a boring book read. You can listen to a boring podcast. You do not want to be stimulated. So no murder mysteries, nothing exciting in any capacity.
Okay.
No rated R coloring books.
So no Good Housekeeping magazine is what you're saying.
Depends on what stimulates. It's different for everyone.
I mean, I saw Step Brothers. I'll just leave that for the audience who knows Step Brothers.
Oh, dear. I hope the general gist of what I'm saying is coming across despite the fact that I'm like stepping over myself here.
It is.
So do you just have some calming things ready for you? And then when you can't sleep, it's less stressful. You're like, okay, I knew that this might happen. I'm totally ready. I'm prepared. I'm going to go to my couch and I'm going to do some reading and some sewing and whatever it is that you do, listening to some music. And then after 20 minutes or so, or you're feeling sleepy, you get back into bed.
Go back.
That's right. And you lay down. And if it happens again, ain't no thing. And I'll tell you from firsthand experience, I have had insomnia my whole life because I get stressed out about things, especially during grad school.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just know I'm going to have some nights like this where I'm in and out of bed. And like, it really isn't fun. But let me tell you, your brain wants you to sleep and your brain is going to put you to sleep eventually. And that is a very important thing to know, that even if you have a couple bad nights like this, as long as you're regimented about this and doing all the things and you have a sleep time and a wake time and you're not napping, by the way, no naps, you're not napping all day in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Eventually your brain is going to regulate.
Okay, this is great because it actually diffuses some of the catastrophizing and the thoughts that happen. Because that is one of the problems. Now I'm not sleeping.
That's right.
Now I'm ruined. I'm forever broken.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to catch up. So, no, not true.
Correct.
And the not napping thing is interesting because I've heard that as well. Like the naps.
No naps.
Because what you're doing is, again, you're just spreading out the sleep and instead of doing it when you really need to. Yeah.
So I'll tell you the why. There's a chemical, I believe it's adenosine in your brain that builds up over the course of your day. And when it reaches a certain critical level, that's when you fall asleep. Now, what happens when you take a nap in the middle of the day is you lower the level of adenosine. So you need to build it up to it's delayed. The building up of it is delayed even later. So if you take a 3-hour nap in the middle of the day, you're not going to fall asleep until 2 in the morning. And then you're going to try and wake up at 7 or 8 and it's not going to work.
And this is parenting 101. The kid sleeps too long during the day, doesn't get to sleep at night. And so, okay, you may be talking about this, but what about things like melatonin and these sort of...
Yeah, that's a great question. So my understanding is melatonin can be helpful. I mean, look, my like at the end of the day, my TLDR too long, didn't read. Short, brief summary is like your brain has all the chemicals it needs to help you get to sleep. Like if you're using all the things, you can hack insomnia. So getting sunlight, setting these behavioral parameters. But yes, melatonin can be really helpful, especially is my understanding, especially if you're jet lagged.
Right.
And there's been research that shows that if you have migraine and headache, melatonin can also be helpful for sleep and headache. That's what I've read. But in general, like you have all the chemicals. Your brain has the chemicals it needs, and your brain is eventually going to sleep. And if you're not sleeping, it's your body's way of telling you there's some shit that needs to be worked out. Like you're thinking about some stuff, or there's something going on in your life. Right?
It makes sense.
There's something happening.
So the way I often conceive about these processes, and again, some of it comes from meditation, some of it comes from reading about neuroscientists talking about these ideas that there are these subminds that are processing information unconsciously.
Yeah.
At some point, that information gets pushed into consciousness. And the sooner that happens, the sooner it's processed and those subminds can stop.
Yeah.
If you have been dealing with a bunch of stuff, like you said, it's been a hard day, the stuff's going crazy, there's stress, whatever. It's processing, whether you're awake or asleep, it does it still. So it's what you don't really ideally want is in the middle of the night, that submind to be like, hey, by the way, remember that thing? And then you're like, and then you're awake. So that means that sometimes you just have to deal with your shit, which takes work. It's not as easy as taking Klonopin or Ambien.
Right.
It's hard and we're tired, but it is the only sustainable solution. And understand that it's not magic. So you may get better and then it may come back again.
That's exactly
just like depression, just like anything.
That's exactly right.
Can't be discouraged. We can't be like, I'm broken. It's never going to get. Yeah.